Chairman Allison Buck,
Here.
Vice Chair Deborah Mexicott,
Here.
Commissioner Jonah Copy,
Here.
Colleen Crawley,
Here.
David Esau,
Here.
John Kotarski,
Here.
Mary Thafels.
Here.
We have everyone present.
Fabulous. Okay, welcome, Molly. First thing on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Second,
Second.
thank you, Jonah. Any discussion of the agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Next, we have public comment. The only person we have in public right now is Olivia, who I will introduce in just a moment, and ask her to come forward and speak. So I would assume there's no public comment then. Then we have approval of the minutes from March 6th, 2019. Do I have anyone who moves to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, David. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Deb. Any discussion?
I'm not sure how public comment could be approved as presented. Seems like that could
Correct.
just be crossed out.
Yes.
Nina,
pretty
can
sure
you
we
make that
didn't
small
vote.
change, please?
Just deleting approved as presented?
That make sense? Any other comments, questions? All right, so should we move to approve with that amendment?
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, fabulous.
And was that just for the amendment, or was that for the whole thing?
Oh, the whole thing, but we can move to do the
It was
whole thing now.
presented as amended, I thought, I
Yeah,
heard.
I said as
Okay.
amended, yeah.
Is that, I defer
Great.
to the vice chair.
I said approve as amended, so I meant the
Yeah,
whole
that should
thing
cover
with
the
the
whole thing.
amendment.
And actually, one of the things that we might want to think about adopting is that if somebody offers an amendment, it could be offered as a friendly amendment to be just accepted by those that first moved and seconded. And so if not, then you actually have to go on and actually
Reapprove.
vote on that particular part. So we did it as a friendly amendment, which is great. So,
Yeah, that seems reasonable. We have lots of friendly amendments.
very friendly.
Thank you for keeping us
Eh,
in Robert's Rules of
Making it
Order.
easier on us, Deb, thank you. So next we have report from chair, and I have a couple things to report out about things that have been going on in the interim between now and our last meeting. Deb and I met with Robert Keller, who is the communication specialist at the city. And he provided us a long list of the various ways the city communicates with the public through email blasts, through social media, through their website, et cetera. They have some newsletters. And that was a very promising conversation where we can tie in our messaging into those outlets. Some make more sense than others, obviously. Like the water-related stuff might not make sense unless it's a project that's water-related. The one caveat being that any of our communication has to be directly related to a city project. We can't wiggle and say, even this artist who made this piece here is doing this work now in this other city. Those type of communications are outside the realm. It has to be very specific to specific pieces that are within our collection. But, even having that outlet of communication to talk about our current collection is great. So we're excited about that. We're also going to be doing scheduling some smaller meetings with probably 2 to 3 people at a time with Robert directly. So you can get that full list, look that over, talk to him in depth about what that means, get some media training while we're there, get more information from him. It'll be just a really great training and informational meeting for each of us to have. So we'll be reaching out to you guys to schedule those, depending on what works for you guys and for Robert. Mary, you looked like you had a question.
Yeah, just curious about
Your mic's not on.
promoting other art that exists in the city. It has to be within the city collection. It can't be privately funded project that's happening. We can't hype that up.
No.
Okay.
Yep, it has to be specifically related to the city. And then that's more of like their general purview. I mean, they can't even talk about transportation projects that are outside of their purview either. So it's a rule for everything within the city communications. John?
Deb had a question.
Well, it wasn't a question, it was a comment, but given that, there are opportunities to perhaps, if we are working in partnership with the organization that is promoting that particular piece of art, then we have that angle that connects us to that particular piece. So I think that what it is just that we want to make sure that we are connecting in positive ways with the city's mission as well as with the work of this commission. And so it wasn't a hard and fast, but it was something that we want to consider if we're going to put something forward through these communication channels.
And sometimes
Chair?
there's like a little bit of wiggle room as far as, being able to share someone else's communication about something, perhaps if it's somehow connected. But those are kind of the intricacies that we can talk directly with Robert about and see how we best fit. John?
To tie into Deb's comment, that we are tasked with promoting public art in the ordinance, in public spaces. And if you read that mission, it's pretty broad. It's basically, we are tasked with encouraging art in public spaces and not just the city purchasing art. So that in fact, the council wants us to do that. It then seems reasonable to me that it would be reasonable to promote a broader sort of public art than just city-owned. But I defer to Deb.
Well, I think that one of the things that we have is we have a number of ways that we would communicate with the public. There are certain things that the city has in place that are for very specific purposes. But as we are sitting right here, we have the bully pulpit to be able to say pretty much anything that we would like to around that public art mission as commissioners. And it's just that there are certain channels that won't be open to us in quite the same way. And so I think you're absolutely right. We do have that mission, and that's this great venue that we have here, and we can actually speak directly to the public as well.
And I think just first figuring out how to use those systems to communicate about our current collection, and then we can move forward with trying to figure out how we can get to that broader mission. So this is a first step, and I'm pretty excited that we had that conversation, got some great information about our website and how we can add information to that. So it was a great first step in moving forward with our communications and being related to the city in that way. Yes, Alex?
Because that was an issue, I mean, I haven't been here for a little bit because I've been working with the Human Rights Commission. I apologize, in fact, I'll have to leave here, at about 8 o'clock to go join that meeting. When I joined this commission liaison a few months ago, beyond that now, time's flying, communication was an issue. It was a source of great frustration. So I talked with, folks in the legal department, I talked with staff, and I've asked if we can kind of open these channels. We can't be so constrictive. And but they treat this commission just like all other boards and commissions, and they all, go back to that, golden book that's got all the rules in it. And Christopher Frost, who's in the legal department, is the one that, handles most of these issues when there are any kind of questions. So I guess, it's kind of, there's going to be some gray area, obviously, always. But I think, Deb, you made a great point. If we're working with another artist, it's not part of the, city's collection, then that kind of association may be permissible. But that I would just check with our legal department real quick and, case by case, and see what happens.
Yep. So additionally, to that meeting, Chris Taylor, our mayor, reached out to me twice with 2 different initiatives that he's looking to us to help him out with, which is why on your agenda you see the addition of a couple working groups. So I just wanted to introduce those two items now. The first item, we had actually sort of talked about a little bit ourselves, but is the gallery here that's in our city chambers, our council chambers. The agreement for that came up, and they've renewed with the Art Center. And he's asking us to work with them to offer feedback and work on the following: how to expand promotion of the gallery and its exhibits, and how to theme the exhibits to align more plainly with the civic nature of council chambers. So I think this is exactly what we are hoping to be able to do to help shape this. And so one of the things that we have on our agenda today is forming a working group to work on specifically that. And he followed up with another email about the second floor photographic representation we have on the wall known as Know Your History, the intent behind the project. It has, pictures of mayors and administrators, but it doesn't adequately reflect or honor the full scope of our community. And hoping that we can come up with a way to show the more diverse community that we represent on that wall. So that group will also look at that and sort of try to figure out how we can boost that.
Yeah, I know the mayor is very interested in that, getting that area outside livened up. And so for sure, that'd be a great project that would probably meet a lot of support. And in terms of the art in the gallery here, and then in council chambers, I did mention it at our last council meeting.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the artist's name with me at the time, so didn't have time to go check, and I'm still not sure who it is yet.
That's next on my
But it's really cool. I really enjoy it. And how long is it up for at a time, do you know?
I think it's a month, but
Just a month? Because the last artist had their work up there longer than that, I think.
That may have just been a scheduling issue.
I think, yeah, they were at the end of their contract, so it might have been related to that.
So, yeah. Okay, great, thanks.
Just a quick clarification. So the Arbor Art Center is rotating these two spaces already? The Arbor Art Center
mean
is
this work?
yes, of picking the artist and rotating it?
Specifically this, yes.
And so our involvement would be to work with the Art Center to diversify the creative?
To sit down with them, evaluate the program as it
Uh-huh,
was this past year, give them feedback, and then also think about ways that it can be promoted more, either through our channels or through their channels.
Is the photographic wall, though, with the Art Center?
No,
So it's just this space,
just
Mary?
this. But both of those projects are gonna go in the same working group,
Okay, I get it.
because it's all in this kind of area, and I thought they were related enough that one working group could be formed to handle both of them. And then also work with the Art Center to do those themes that were more related. Okay. The third thing I wanted to report out about, I invited the Art Center to come present about the art that is up today. Unfortunately, no one was able to come. They're putting up a exhibit themselves at their space currently, so they're all involved in that. But they did send over a description, which I'd like to share with all of you.
And is it possible to actually get the camera on the art while we're talking about it?
That would be great. I know we have shown it in the past.
Yeah, and it'd be great if we could maybe zoom in on that. Yep, perfect.
Thank you.
And actually, if we could even get closer, that would be fantastic. If we could pan, I don't know what your capabilities are. Well, there's the panning, that's good. Oh, there we go, we're moving in.
Yes.
All right. This is, our intrepid camera people in the booth are doing a great job here, so
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Okay, so this artist is Michael Gargiulo, Garguilo. So I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. But a Royal Oak, Michigan artist. The artist statement: throughout history, humankind has buried the dead beneath mounds of earth, creating memorials to their ancestors. Buried beneath and within mounds, one finds the discarded mementos of everyday experience. In this body of work, I am considering the weight of these collective contributions, buried modern man, as they grow into new and mysterious forms and icons of modernity. Throughout this body of work, I am interested in the interplay of material and content. There is direct relationship between my memories of compacted trash and the use of palette knife and glass to drag paint across a surface. While this can create a vibrant blending of colors in the case of Mound XL, it also has the potential for creating a sludge in the case of Mound XL2, which I know represents numbers, but I'm worse with those. This sludge is not unlike that found in the back of a garbage truck I rode in as a child with my uncle. Memory and process become one within this body of work. So the artist, Bio, he's born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as a painter and printmaker, received MFA from Boston University, BFA from Southern Methodist University in Dallas, has received honors and awards for his work and has been included in several juried exhibitions nationally. He's currently teaching at Saginaw Valley State University and Oakland University. Since arriving in Michigan in 2011, he has maintained an active studio practice, most recently exhibiting his work in Boston, Michigan, Louisiana, and Texas. They also include a brief description about this city gallery. It said, in collaboration with the City of Ann Arbor, the Ann Arbor Art Center presents rotating exhibitions in the City Council chambers. Each exhibition highlights the talent and creativity of local and regional artists. To inquire about purchasing artwork, please contact the Art Center. So it's nice to have that information and share that out with everyone. Hopefully we can get them to come and present in future meetings, but glad we had that to share. Yes, Deb.
And I just wanted to say that, and we really appreciate the work that was done by CTN to get the pieces up on the camera this evening. But in person, these pieces just sing. The surfaces are really well-worked and well-constructed. The colors are great. And so if you are here at the City Hall and have just a moment, it's well worth your time to just step up and see these pieces up close.
Second floor, open to the public. Come on in. The final thing I have to report to you guys is that I'm excited to let you know that Benita has hired someone to do our inventory process. She's finished all the interviews, and she's hired Olivia Pierce, who's joining us tonight. And I'd just like Olivia to step up to the podium, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm currently going to be a senior at Eastern, and I'm a history and geography major. So I'm working on the Ann Arbor story map. So like people can look at their phones and see where all the Ann Arbor art is located, and you can see pictures and descriptions of it, and like a little about the artist, and see where everything is. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Olivia while we have her here?
So will this be more than just on phones? Can we, can people who don't use that kind of technology be able to?
Yeah, well, you can see it on like computers and on phones.
all
Yeah.
devices?
All devices. All
Mm,
devices.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Deb.
Is this on the StoryMap platform, the ArcGIS platform?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic.
Yeah, it will just be, well, we have like the base layer right now, and we're just gonna make it more like user-friendly and like add all the pictures and stuff.
Excellent. And that platform, if our project is picked as one of their gallery projects, would actually be seen around the world, so.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really
It's new to
cool
me. I'm
tool.
excited.
So is the process for documenting the public art collection here going to be going on to this story?
Yes,
mapping?
yes,
Okay,
because
okay.
we already have like a list of all the public art in Ann Arbor, and we're like going around and taking pictures and then getting like information about the artist and the artwork and writing descriptions for it, and also like seeing the conditions of the art and stuff, so.
And this goes beyond the city collection or just the city collection?
It's just the commissioned city collection.
Well, Olivia, if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to us as
Okay.
well. Benita has all of our contact information.
has it.
And it looks like John has a question as well.
The list that you talk about,
Oh.
could you share that with the Art Commission, so we have a list of all the art?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
So is this a city project, or who is
It's
paying for this and managing it?
It's Public Works and Public Administration. But yeah,
This is
it's
the
Public
intern that we
Works.
were talking about in
Oh,
the
okay,
previous
for-
meetings that Benita was hiring.
Yes. As a matter of fact, this is the
This is the
intern we were
intern.
talking.
Welcome.
I'm sorry if I didn't introduce that clearly enough.
You're getting
This is-
grilled right away.
Missed that
Welcome.
important piece of information.
Sorry.
The intern that was promised.
I'm here.
In the flesh. Great.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you
you.
so
We're
much.
excited to have you.
I'm excited for the project.
All right. Next on the agenda is new business, the addition of new work groups. So, we're creating 2 working groups. You might see today that David Zinn and Connie is not here with us anymore. They both decided to end their times with us and move on, so we need to find a couple more commissioners. So this working group would be the people who would be responsible for selecting people, going and talking to them about the commitment and all that. So does anyone want to volunteer to participate on said work group?
Madam Chair, that I'm wondering if the work group in this respect could be the chair and the vice chair, and I'd be willing to serve as the former chair. And I think that that if the work group was open enough to invite any suggestions from any of the commissioners, that my experience, in that chair seat, that you understand the commission, how it works, and how to best present it to someone, to recruit someone. So that would be my recommendation, but of course.
Yeah, I think Deb and I were planning on being a part of it. We talked a little bit about that.
And
you
I'm
wanna
willing to
be on it.
volunteer myself.
And I think if anyone wants to participate in the process, I'm open to you participating. We've already emailed to send ideas and names and things. Haven't gotten any
Have
names
you-
yet, but
Have you talked with Robert Keller as well as publishing that and getting it out?
about
About
putting
the
it out through our
openings?
channels. We
Yeah.
didn't talk about that, but it's a great idea.
Yeah, if you just pump that out there. I mean, that'd definitely be a good use of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, while we are looking to recruit commissioners, it's also a process of application. And so we certainly welcome anyone who might be interested to put forward such an application, and that can be found on the city's website.
They might stumble across another board or commission. We're looking for, there's a lot of vacancies on a lot of these, and so,
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, we should put it on our website.
yeah.
And perhaps think about, while it's certainly an open process, and I think the application is open at all times, we might want to sort of think about what that framework we would like to sort of have people consider and apply in. So,
Great. So the 3 of us can meet and talk about that. The other working group that we need to get some members for is the one I talked about previously, working with the Art Center on the Council Chambers Gallery, as well as coming up with a recommendation for a plan for the photographic wall here on the 2nd floor. Do I have anyone who's interested in participating in said group? John, thank you.
I think that one might be interesting.
Okay, great. Okay. I can participate as well. Great. Thank you, guys. We don't actually have to vote to form the groups. I asked Chris about that, so just, if we all agree we want to do it, that's great. Old business. Doesn't look like we have any. Do we have old business? And then report from staff.
Three items to report from the staff. This stadium bridge glass panels have been replaced. I'm going to jump to the third item, the Jewett Memorial chairs. The artist will be on site tomorrow to work at the placing the chairs in their permanent location on Fifth. So that move is imminent. And the last item is the canoe fan. At the last city council meeting, council directed Mr. Lazarus, which then falls to staff, to see if the canoe fan is still available for purchase, and if it is, to negotiate a purchase.
So, yeah, it was, you know, everyone looks kind of surprised here, I
Yeah.
think. I was hoping to see that look.
Especially by the sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. Councilmember Lum, sponsored by Councilmember Eaton, brought a resolution that I think passed almost unanimously. Wasn't close. It was 10-1 or 11-0 to enter negotiations to purchase it. And I know that the commission here voted 9-0 not to entertain. And so there's a lot of, you know, speculation as to why that was the case. And I think I articulated why this commission thought, and I wasn't here, I don't think, when you voted. I might have missed that meeting. So I just kind of, I didn't want to speak too much, but I would like to hear what you all think of your position in that, and hopefully maybe I was right, and then answer your questions on that. But I also was in talks with staff prior to this resolution to talk with the artists about purchasing it. You know, there was resolutions going back and forth on this. One, to instruct the artist to come pick it up ASAP, and then another one to enter negotiations. So I voted for it to enter negotiations. In fact, I was trying to begin those before the resolution was even passed. So, but for a price, I think, less than what the artist was asking for initially. The artist has responded that there is a community college in Indiana or somewhere that might have been interested in it, and they were supposed to get back to the city by now. I'm surprised we haven't heard anything yet. Maybe we have, and I just haven't heard it yet, that whether that community college would want to purchase it. And so she knows what we're interested in, I guess now even more, since that resolution was passed. So we'll know soon on whether the fate of the canoe fan, because Councilmember Lum and Councilmember Eaton, especially Lum, you know, thinks it's iconic, and a lot of us do, and I agree with her. It's an iconic feature of Gallup Park, and that it would be sad to see it go. So I'll entertain questions and comments.
So Ali, just so we're clear, in the meeting minutes from last meeting, there's a full page on our discussion about the canoe fan, which pretty clearly articulates the full conversation, but I'm just gonna read the last portion. So while canoe fan peace has been enjoyed for many years by the residents of the community, the Ann Arbor Public Art Commission recommends that the city attorney allow the lease to expire and that Ms. Fuller retrieve this piece at her cost by the contract end date. It is the position of the Ann Arbor Public Art Commission that due to limitations on funding and in an effort to maintain a conservative approach with regards to art in the city of Ann Arbor, not to purchase the piece. The artwork will be missed, as for several years the community has enjoyed an inspiring and uplifting piece of public art within the city of Ann Arbor. So, you know, very clearly it's not that we don't like the work and that we don't love having it here. It's just that we have been trying to be very fiscally responsible and conservative in our approach to public art, and that our understanding there wasn't funding for purchasing such a piece, so it could not make a responsible recommendation to buy work with money that we don't have, which is why that.
And this was because of recent discussions on council regarding funding public art.
I think that had an influence, but I think just in general, the Public Art Commission doesn't have a budget, so we can't allocate funds for purchasing art, and make a recommendation for purchasing something without having any form of paying for it.
And are you
Madam
pleasantly
Chair?
surprised that the resolution passed? Are you,
I mean, I think if the city can find money to buy the work, that would be fabulous. We would love to keep the piece here.
I think everyone here liked it.
Yeah.
Nobody had any objection to the piece. It was just a case of the artist having done pretty much everything wrong, other than developing a very nice piece of artwork that we all liked. Just messed up the process, and so it was really hard to recommend paying her to kind of get her out of her mistakes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, John.
I would like to pick up on what you and David have said. I think everyone would like to have the piece of art stay. But I really haven't seen a majority on council encourage this commission to actually go out and suggest purchases of art. Quite the contrary. So I think what we have, as diplomatically as possible, said that we are trying to respect that, and that we are trying to recommend projects that are incorporated in capital projects that could have a budget and that possibly could use the same materials they're building bridges and walls with and fashioning them creatively.
Okay, well,
But if the council would like us to, in fact, find artwork and they're willing to fund it, I think we are ready and willing to do so. So I applaud those commissioners, those council members, and I look forward to working with them to find other artwork that could be as equally as iconic as the fan.
well, I mean, again, I'm just the liaison, so. I'm sorry, Deb, did
No,
you
no,
want to
no,
add to
please.
the conversation? I'm glad, well, what I just heard is what I said at council on Monday, and if anyone listened and watched the meeting, you'll see, go back and watch it if you haven't. I do actually to see what I said, sometimes I forget, like, what did I? So I'm glad I captured that essence, and, the council members that brought this resolution to council, one has repeatedly, said that the ordinance itself needs work. They want to work on the ordinance of the Art Commission. And the other council member will say that we're not going to just give you money and say go find art. I have to go back and listen to the reasoning, but I can't speak for others, but I think it is worth sitting down. It's obviously a moment of optimism and hope, and if we can just kind of capitalize on that, I think we'll find greater success. But I'm excited that it's actually working out. We'll see what the artist comes back and says. We might, not have a choice on this one, but at least I know where this commission is and why it chose to vote the way it did, and I know why that council voted the way it does, but it needs to send you a clearer message, and work on that message.
And I'm excited that they love the piece and want to see it stay.
Yeah, I mean, Jane was sending us photographs on Saturday, like with kids playing on it and people taking pictures of it with them, and she was kind of excited about the idea of keeping it, at Gallup Park, and thinks it'll be really missed if it's not there.
I think it's an exciting testament to the power of public art in our community, and I think that if we can continue to promote the pieces we have, sharing pictures of how people interact with them, and just the joy that they really bring, all these different spaces, I think we can continue to bring more support to the commission and just to our art collection and how we want to continue to promote this in our community, because it's transformative. And I think that we could gain even more support, if we continue to share how that's happening with all these different pieces.
And thank you for representing us at that meeting, and, I hope that they didn't take that as us not being supportive of the piece, our position, but rather just being responsible.
Yeah, no, and I respect that, and I saw that, and that's, without seeing the minutes here, and so
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
glad
you just-
that's what I said on Monday, and I, came at a good time, so.
Great.
So, it's good. It reminds us that, sometimes, good things happen, for different reasons. If you start off and you got your heart set on this, But sometimes the best things happen when you don't intend for that, perhaps. In this case, this canoe thing was, we'll see, I don't want to jinx it. I am known to jinx things. But, you know, it's not, the contract was kind of, you know, butchered and this and that, whatever. But yet, we have something that everyone likes.
Great. Any more updates from staff?
No, that's it.
Okay. Working group reports. John, the communications and marketing group promotion, talk about your.
Sure. Thank you. You all should have the report that was circulated via email, and I believe Vanita included it in the agenda. Basically, we wanted to zero in on how we can, in fact, promote our existing artwork. And do it simply in a way that could also be flexible enough to be expanded and include not just fine artworks owned by the city, but also cultural assets, including historic exhibits and possibly sustainability kinds of things that are part of the city's culture, which is really what public art, you know, is all about. The art, this particular group has met on several times, and they're made up of Colleen Crowley, Allison, and myself. That I have reached out to Don Hammond because he is the primary graphic designer for the Historic Street Exhibit program, which is very successful. And has become iconic and is sorely missed if it would be removed. And he has some interesting insights, valuable ones, that I've listed both in this one and in the previous report that I submitted on behalf of the working group. Basically, what he's recommending is 3 parts: a physical label at the work of art, and how we define the work of art could be expanded whenever we choose to. But start with our iconic pieces, maybe the fan, the canoe fan in Gallup Park. That label would simply state the name, the title of the work, the artist, and possibly the date. And also have a QR code. And that QR code could take the visitor, the user, to a website, and that website could be any number of things. It could also allow the city to allow art to be accessible to those with disabilities. So that's another advantage that this particular aspect of the project would have. In addition to that, he's recommended some kind of a print, a card, a brochure, whatever, but 3 components. So the label would be at the site of the artwork. A card could be electronically shared with various folks throughout town, conventions and visitors bureaus, cafes, things like that, that they could incorporate it within their own sort of promotional material. And both of those would have QR codes that would allow the user to go to a website and have an expanded information base. I've listed a number of advantages. They're pretty obvious. That, you know, we need more accessibility to our cultural assets. This is a way to do it. Defining it more as a cultural asset as opposed to fine art could bring in a lot more stakeholders, including this historic street exhibit program. Ray Derrick considers those pieces public art. Well, we can welcome that into this particular way of promoting public art. Don recommends that the first step is to bring these together into what he calls a proof of concept mock-up. So it's basically, what does it look like? And how does it look tied together? A simple mock-up of a label, a mock-up of a card, and a mock-up of a homepage and one page of a website. Just get the design together so that you can show people that that could be done in-house if it's if the city feels comfortable enough. That the work group wants to emphasize that this particular promotional piece is actually going to be a part of our cultural asset. So it just really needs to look good. And that he believes that this proof of concept mock-up would cost less than $3,000 if it was done professionally, and it could probably be some measure in between that if it was a part of the city. The city wants to do a part of this. That I mentioned the collaborators, that when you get this digital sort of component and we start identifying collaborators and sharing them, this brings in more stakeholders so that they can, the hands-on museum can be promoting public art while it's promoting its museum. The coffee shops can be promoting public art while they're promoting their new drink. As well as those stakeholders for cultural assets, as I mentioned, the Historic Street Exhibit Program, and you know, the live roof that we have right out here. It's unique in terms of sustainability, and it's not fine art, but it certainly speaks to who we are as a city, a cultural asset. Our rain gardens, these are things that are a part of our culture. They could be incorporated in some way and should be as a broad menu of assets. So our working group recommends that this commission ask the staff to explore producing a proof of concept mock-up for an artwork label, printed card, and web page, either in-house or outsourced to local graphic designers. 2, to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of producing the final elements either in-house or outsourced to local fabricators. So this is a first step in exploring what the city can do and how it can do it, and maybe putting some kind of a cost attached to it. I would make that as a motion from our work group.
You're specifically talking about signage when you're talking about fabrication.
So what I'm first recommending that the staff explore producing a proof of concept, however, either in-house or outsource it to someone, an RFP, however they want to do it. We have an estimate that it would cost less than $3,000. In addition to that, evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of producing the elements of this mock-up, the final project, either in-house or outsourced. So what I'm proposing the commission ask staff is to start thinking about this. Thinking, first of all, actually do a mock-up of a proof of concept. Second, start exploring whether or not the city could fabricate the signs or could actually do the kinds of web work that would be necessary, could create kind of the digital brochure sort of thing. The city has a communication department. They have a $2 million budget. They have professional folks here. They may not have the time, along with a whole lot of other things, to do it. So I totally understand that. They have a sign shop, but I don't know those issues, and I don't think our commission should know them. All we are asking is, let's move this forward. The way to move it forward is to develop a mock-up of a proof of concept. We've done all the work for all the good reasons. We have put forward that this should be done. That Don Hammond is recommending that, you know, the next step is to get something that you can look at to see how this looks. And at the same time, start thinking about who can fabricate this, or does the city want to take this fabrication on or not?
So I have a question, and then this is great, because we certainly want labels that are able to interface well with the public. It's going to promote our work, and it may actually also eventually have some links to the online story map project as well. Have you, or is part of this research into what these might be in other communities? Are there such uniform labeling with the QR code so that maybe we could have a jumping off point for the city to sort of be thinking about? Because if it's been tested someplace else, because it's out in the weather and, it's, how, it would be great to have a couple of examples of that to help them sort of see what it is that we're sort of heading for. So I was just wondering if you had done some of that research yet, or
No.
if that could be part of this sort of thinking about it.
It could be, but I think our work group has spent the time it can I wouldn't know who to call, and I'm not interested in calling anybody to find out. I do know there are QR codes. I go to Chicago, I go everywhere. I see QR codes in Kroger's. So I know that this works. I know I've seen it outside.
Yeah, the QR
Mary
code's
may
not
know.
the issue at all. It's
Pardon me?
really, the QR code's not the issue at all.
Right.
We could have a QR code for this meeting
Right,
now
exactly,
in just a second.
exactly.
But I think it's just thinking if there are some examples of what this signage can look like, then we can actually move in a little faster, I think, toward, what we might actually want this to be. That's all.
Without reinventing the wheel,
Right,
so
yeah.
to speak.
Sure.
Yeah, have somebody else have it rained on and snowed on and sleeted on, and so then we can just take advantage of that.
Well, that could be a part then of staff exploring it.
And I think the second aspect of this, evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of producing the elements in-house or outsourcing, several of the works do have labels. So there is examples out there of different materials being used as labels. I think part of this is making those cohesive and represent a collection, more uniform, having these, if you see this label on something, you immediately recognize that it's part of this other collection when you see those same types of labels throughout. So there might already be examples from the current collection that could be looked at and say, well, this one really worked, and this one we've had replaced 3 times, or whatnot. Additionally, we have a very various collection. So there's sculptures that are in the middle of plazas, there are things attached to walls, and so they require different types of signage. And so we're kind of looking to the city to figure out what works best, because they have the most experience putting up signs throughout the city, making signs. And so we're kind of looking to them to give feedback as well.
Olivia is doing part of that as she is out now, looking at everything.
Great.
Looking at the signage, what has been working, what is not working, what needs to be updated. So she is looking at that too.
Great.
She seems like a good partner for this as well,
Yeah.
for sure.
David.
So, first of all, since John made a formal motion, I will second that, just so we can actually move to discussion.
Was that a formal motion?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did move that the commission recommends staff, and I read it, so it's in the report.
Okay.
The recommendations of report, I'm submitting it as a motion.
Thank you for seconding, David. Any other questions, discussion?
I'm having a hard time understanding what the card is. Is that one piece that covers all of the artworks, or is that one piece for each artwork? And if it's one piece for each artwork, where would it be?
The card is
What-
more of like a informational piece that talks about the full collection. It's more of a summary piece of what all these different cards are, all the different labels. So the project itself is gonna be all the cultural assets.
So it's basically a brochure for the city public art system.
Saying that these labels exist, saying that this website exists, saying you should go check them out.
Okay.
Yeah, a very general piece.
Not an encyclopedia of all of the artwork,
No.
maybe a sample.
Maybe a couple examples.
And and parts so that collaborators could take and pick whatever suits them. But it would be promoting the idea that we do have public art, and we do have labels, and we do have ways of connecting to deeper information on the web.
Okay.
I support the direction we're going with this. I just have to remind the Art Commission that we don't have a budget for this type of work, even if it's only 3,000. We have scraped the corners of what art money we had to get the intern on board. So going forward, we'd have to look at how to do it. When you talk of staff doing it, basically it's Benita and I. If you're going to engage communication staff, we have to have a funding source to pay for their labor. Because they're on board already doesn't mean they are funded to work on this project.
I do wonder, so there is a maintenance budget, correct?
The maintenance of art within our collection is the responsibility of the host of the art.
Okay. I wonder if, having a label that identifies the piece and the artist seems essential to the upkeep of the piece, and if it could be somehow tied in that way.
When you said, do we have a maintenance budget? I answered to you who maintains it. I did not tell you there was a budget for maintenance. When a piece of art needs maintenance, the host has to go find the money to do it.
And I guess I'm suggesting that maybe this is one example of where we look to the hosts to provide the funding for the labels.
It's something we can definitely explore as to how we do this. But I don't want you to think we're going to charge off and do it immediately. We're going to have to first of all figure out how the heck we pull the resources together to do it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Speaking to Mr. Hoopy, I take your very first sentence, you said that you like the direction this is going. That is all I needed to hear. I want to focus then on two words in the resolution. First is explore, and the second is evaluate. It doesn't say do, it doesn't say produce. It merely says explore, yes, and evaluate.
Your point is well taken.
I'm curious about the interaction with what the intern is doing, and, I mean, if she's working on something that becomes web pages, I mean, either that establishes some sense of design for us, or maybe it's so bad that we want to throw it out and start over, but I don't know.
She's
I
not
have no idea.
designing web pages, she's taking pictures and putting them into a already produced thing, right?
But
It's a GIS.
Yeah, but I'd actually say that it very much looks like interactive web pages. It looks like the parallax piece where you have things that slide in front and slide behind. I literally went to a workshop on this yesterday. So it looks very much like a designed web page or set of web pages, and you're able to click through to other pages that are hosted there as well. So it's a very user-friendly way of putting together an interactive information piece. It's something I'm going to do next year for my program at the university for sure.
Do you
So-
have design control?
You do, in that you're basically backgrounding with your own pictures. You are using maps that can be supplied from,
Google Maps.
Google. This is, so in some ways, at the workshop, they made us do one. It's hard to make it look bad because it's got so many features sort of built in. But I think that what will happen is that if we can get some kind of whatever these codes are, could be linked to the interaction. There could be a way to sort of work that back and forth once that is sort of created, so.
I mean, it sounds like whatever happens with the motion, whether it gets turned over to staff or we keep it kind of in the art commission, that we probably need to wait to see how that plays out before too much happens on it. regardless, because that,
And I think-
that's gonna establish some precedent.
This was to have some work happening, some
Yeah.
exploration happening while that information is being
Yeah,
mined.
true.
And then any implementation likely would happen, obviously, further down the line. So do we vote then?
Well, it's moved and seconded, so we have to do something with it.
Okay,
Unless we're gonna
so-
table it.
Is there any
um,
more discussion with it?
I just wanted to say that I want to echo sort of what you said around the fact that it's good to put this into the record for the purposes of having it be in our minds while we're developing the other pieces. So I think that that's a good direction, as you put it, Craig, to sort of think about.
Great.
Can Olivia join this group? I mean, is it advantageous to have her?
I think this group's work is somewhat done at this point. But we could meet with her to get
But
updates.
We would welcome you to
He said-
join the work
she
group
said
you're talking
Olivia.
about? Or the,
For Olivia, the
Olivia.
intern.
oh,
Yeah.
I see, okay.
So,
Motion?
Benita's heard our discussion. She can direct the work, so.
Yeah. all right, all in favor?
Of exploring and evaluating?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. You gotta go on.
Yeah, I'll I don't know if anyone wanted to send something with me, but I gotta go downstairs to the basement right now.
Any word on the design review board?
You know, I'm working with staff right now. I really, still waiting to hear back from the planning department, on their, on more feedback. But also just, kind of the communications that I had with you, Commissioner, John, is, will the member from this commission, be okay if, you know, as a non-voting member, to the Plan and Review Design Board, you know, how much influence they have on the decisions that get made there, and whether it's the best fit or not. But I think we just want to make sure that it's a position that has meaning to it and is effective in the process of influence public art with new development. But I don't have a formal answer for you just yet, other than it's ongoing in trying to make sure that it has as much impact as it can have.
So maybe we should jump to this working group, so there's some context here.
Okay,
John, do you wanna, or whoever's introducing this? working group?
I can give 5 minutes to this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, this is a report from a developer support work group, and the idea behind this is to provide some tools, resources, and even inspiration for developers for how they can incorporate art, public art, into future developments that will be happening. Has a
These are
couple.
private developments, right?
Exactly, yeah, so be it commercial, residential developments happening in Ann Arbor. A few different components to it, starting with a registry of artists. So that would, you know, give them a sort of a background of people that could potentially participate in or commission work for those developments. Also a registry of consultants and people that could advise on how to incorporate that. So first you have the artists, then you have people that are familiar with the process and consulting on that. An idea book, we used an example in the meeting, which was essentially a jumping off point of a Pinterest page, which showed public art in various different cities, all different contexts, be it murals, sculpture, all different kinds of pieces like those. And essentially, the piece that was being discussed by Councilmember Ramwali is the idea of a member of the Public Art Commission serving on the Design Review Board to give input for projects that are coming and how to incorporate work into those new construction and whatnot.
Maybe Mr. Hupy can help me with all he knows, the encyclopedia over there. The concern is the decisions that the Design and Review Board make are kind of just black and white. There's not a whole lot of room for influence when it comes to public art, and I haven't explored this to great depths to vet it out on whether is the place to be to put this out to and into developers' minds and drawings and buildings. And so where this can go in the process in development is kind of what is that question.
I think it's important to inject somebody with this knowledge into that space so that there's more familiarity with how we can integrate development and art from ground zero. And I think it could be something that has a slower start but could really gain momentum. And this is what's happening in other cities. And this is why public art is so successful around the nation, is because there's this overlap and integration of development and public art. And so for us to be lacking that really sets us behind the creative standard that is happening across the nation of creating a local, maybe it's even regional artist database along with art consultants that can work with developers at this stage. And this is just, the impact of this is just renowned, and it's happening around the nation. And so for us to even just plant the seed for that is really important.
And the person you're suggesting to sit in on those meetings, would it be the same person all the time? Like one person from our commission that would go to all those meetings?
I would
just
suggest that would be,
And not have a,
That was
okay.
the idea.
And not vote at those meetings, but just have a voice?
it would be a non-voting member.
Okay.
My understanding is the Design Review Board doesn't really make any decisions anyways. They have no authority over the projects, so I'm not sure, being a non-voting person on a board that doesn't actually make any decisions doesn't seem that problematic to me.
Yeah.
But I think it does give us an entree to at least talk to people that we might not have the possibility of talking to about public artwork. It will only reach projects in the downtown area because that's all the Design Review Board covers. So there's that,
Start somewhere.
yeah.
I think it's much more attractive than going through a database and a sheet looking for possible CIP projects that we can attach to. I mean, this is so much more intrinsically designed when you can connect artists, consultants with the developer. And I think there could be a lot of excitement in just educating developers on how they can upgrade their facades or their spaces and create more community. And really, everybody wins at that point.
I think what the hesitation of staff was, just didn't want to set up, false hope and put a member in that position that wouldn't have that, impact. But I agree. I think you never know, the synergy, something might be said to spark conversation, a question. It was, something happened in a conversation that made a considerable impact and change, so, but.
False hope to the Art Commission? Our bread and butter.
All right, you live on that, okay.
My understanding is to make this happen, a change has to happen in the ordinance. I'm not sure which ordinance. Do you know which ordinance?
It's in the development, it's on
There.
the community services area. I don't know exactly which ordinance, but it would be the planning and development, whether it's the uniform development code or, which now that they've
Probably.
reorganized everything, I'm not sure which is
Okay.
where. but-
And I know that Ollie's working on it, and Chris Ross is working. on it.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair?
I can pester Chris to. work
Yeah,
on
we'll pester him some more. Again, I'll let John go ahead because I gotta get moving,
Yeah.
but I will stay for another second or a minute.
I would like to make a motion that incorporates these recommendations A, B, C, D, and I would like to emphasize that they all begin with the word explore, Mr. Hoopy. So my motion would be to move this commission
All right, good.
adopt this as a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Discussion, further discussion? Yes, Deb.
First of all, there's a couple of things that I was just thinking about as I was looking through this. The first is, who is exploring? Are we exploring it as a
No,
commission?
staff.
So it's staff exploring the development of a registry, the development of this project review, et cetera. The second question I have is, are there already partners that we could think about in the community that might actually be able to implement a registry more easily than us? For instance, the Arts Alliance.
That would be part of the exploration.
Because I would want to put that out there as a, because maintenance will be an issue. There might be partners that are already doing this kind of work, as we know. And it seems like the main area for staff to explore straight up is the ordinance piece, is the part of actually getting it in there. And I agree that being at the table to have the discussion, I mean, they're there having a discussion whether they have the power to do anything or not. And so that seems to be the entree for at least starting to do this work, so. All right, thank you. David is.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that we haven't really talked much about the idea book for public art. John claims that he spent just a little bit of time putting this together before our meeting, and I defy anyone to look through that and not see 20 things that you wish we had in our community.
Very inspirational, for sure.
So, if you haven't gotten a live link of that, we should send that out if it's still available.
I'd hope that we could show it, but a little more planning on my part, we could. But it's a2publicart.org. Look it up on your cell phones. And it's simply a Pinterest site. And you know how Pinterest works. It's addictive. But brought together under those headings, you're absolutely right. And that is hopefully the intent, that if we could get this, if a developer would look at it and go, oh my God, yeah, and then, ideas, I used to make art. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Go to any bar near an art school and you'll see a million ideas. It's actually getting them done. But the inspiration has to start there, I think.
Well, I
would
think
love to
this
send
is-
that to council.
I think this is a wonderful way to reach the private sector and start getting more dollars, private dollars, going towards public art, having a voice at that table. I think I would express the same cons or concerns that you guys put together in here about the registries, that, developing it and maintaining it is gonna be a challenge. Yeah, so, how that happens, I don't know, but, they would be great resources, and I think that having a seat at that table, if, staff can figure that out, that would be a great asset to our team.
And I just wanted to say, should we ask our city council liaison to forward that link? We will ask our city council liaison to forward that link
I have shared that with Ollie,
and ask him to forward that link.
and we can do that. I didn't want to get too far ahead,
No, but now that
Which I
we've
usually
discussed
do.
it,
so, but this is discussion on the motion. Once we have this motion, I think part of the exploration process would be to share this, first with the IT. This is something I did. This is my personal account. They may want to say, keep it personal, or bring it in, to make this branded as the city's. I don't know, I don't care. But I just think they need to think about it, explore how it might happen.
Let's go to an example right now.
It's just an example. It's right, it's just an example,
Yep, great,
but a powerful one, attested to by David.
great. All right, I guess I'm motion to support, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great work, guys. Moving back in our work groups, the CIP work group, I understand, has no updates.
Nothing to report this time.
Donation and art placement has nothing to report at this time.
Nothing to report at this time.
The fundraising work group also has nothing to report, although we'll be discussing the possibility of applying for a grant soon. Youth outreach and interaction work group, I understand.
Nothing to report. We haven't met since then, but I think we do need to reconfigure ourselves shortly and think about how we want to move forward with leadership.
Great.
And I'll make the outreach for that meeting.
Any other things related to work groups before we move on? Okay. Social presentations, I don't believe there are any. Which means we're on to adjourn. Unless people want to give updates about anything related they think pertinent to us knowing.
I'm going to get an electric bike. Is that part of it?
Sure,
Oh,
that's
okay.
exciting.
It's very exciting to me.
Anything else?
I will.
Yes.
I'll just update. Big City, Small World did get a stage. They had music for the Waterhill Music Festival continued, which is a new iteration. It was very local, very neighborhoody, a lot different than the last several years, and the people who attended loved it. It was really great. There was music both at Big City on Spring Street, and then probably at about a dozen homes throughout the area, and at the Porch of Bloom across the street from Big City. So it was pretty fun. It was good.
I emailed you guys all, former Commissioner Patty Smith is holding a public art salon on May 11th at 7 p.m. It is now at the Eldelvrau, I don't know how you say that, brewery, not at her home. So if anyone's planning on attending that, that's where it is. Anything else?
Just quickly, Treetown Murals will be bringing 2 new murals to downtown Ann Arbor. First one is at the Detroit Filling Station. We install the panels on Friday, so that will be a neat kind of collaborative project. And then we're working with Destination Ann Arbor and Wickfield Properties to bring a mural to the Huron and 4th Street corridor as well. So stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.